Yeah, well, and I think the other thing, so I mentioned the portal editions. I think another part, and we'll get to some more of the editions, but just to kind of following up on the Birch edition, it is the sixth kind of key player that has either been added or retained from last year's roster. This darn COVID thing makes it so complicated, Mark, of like who's going, who's not going. Everybody seems to have an announcement of some sort to make at this point, whether it's I'm going pro, I'm not going pro. Um, and there were five pretty key players on Oregon's defense that could have, in theory, exhausted their eligibility, but because of the COVID year, chose to use that. And they're all in that defensive front. And I think that's one of the things that is encouraging because the season ended and again they didn't get that pass rush wasn't very good. They were a solid run defense, I think fourth in the Pac-12, and aside from Oregon State, did a pretty good job of holding opposing run games in check. But they have also been able to, I guess, convince Casey Rogers and Brandon Dorlus, who are two full-time starters on the defensive line, both started every game this past season. Two of your better defensive players, they are both decided to come back. Popo Aumavae, who was slated to be a starter this upcoming season, but suffered an injury in fall camp. He started 13 games in 2021. He has gotten a medical clearance for what will be his seventh season at Oregon in 2023. So he's back. Mace Funa and Taki Taimani were two guys that were pretty key reserves. Funa even started, I think it was 8 games this last year, kind of as in and out of the starting lineup. They both announced they're coming back. So you've got that. You've got a couple other players that were pretty central figures, and then adding Jordan Birch, adding about 10 high school players at this position group, whether it be interior guys or edge players. Like Oregon has certainly put in the effort to solidify itself up front. And I think that's pretty critical for a defense that had moments of brilliance, but unfortunately far more moments of the opposite that cost them in some big moments. So I think you feel a little bit better, certainly now mid-January, than you did maybe 2 to 3 weeks ago, where you weren't sure who all was coming back and you were going, gosh, we need to go find someone in the portal to kind of solidify the pass rush. Well, they went out and did kind of all of those things. And now the question, unfortunately, and I don't know how much you want to get into this, is they're at 95 scholarships, and how do they get to 85? So that's kind of the next obstacle is they've already had 16 guys. I think it's actually 17 now leave, and they're going to have to find some other players that maybe don't finish their careers at Oregon too.